This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and we have a great guest today. Everybody must know her, Debbie Dilworth.
Hi, Whitey.
How are you, Debbie?
Good to see you.
Now, what is your position with the town?
I am the tax assessor for the town of Nantucket.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you for making me visual now. I was enjoying my anonymity.
So, what's been happening lately? Have you been getting lots of people coming into your office and asking difficult questions?
You could say business has been very good.
I see.
We've just completed our 3-year revaluation, and the deadline to appeal your new value ended on Monday the 21st. So for the past month, we've been extremely busy with taxpayers concerned about their new values, wanting to understand the process. It's kind of difficult because assessments are always done kind of in the rearview mirror, and the values that for the fiscal year 2010, values are based on a snapshot of the market as of January 1st, 2009, based on sales of properties in 2008. And the market was still quite strong in 2008. So many of the people that have appealed now, I'd say about 50% of them have current real estate appraisals that they've done in conjunction with the refinance, and those values are significantly less. Unfortunately, those taxpayers will not be successful in seeing a reduction for this assessment. Moving forward, we'll be adjusting the values for the fiscal year 2011, and we'll be using the 2009 calendar year sales for that. So
you got a lead time situation. Yeah.
That's a function of the statute. We're always about 18 months behind the market.
And does the state mandate that, or did we mandate that?
No, that's a state law.
We can blame Boston.
We can blame Boston.
Yeah, because a lot of people have been asking me how come. And I say, well, your neighbors must have sold out at the top of the market, and here you are maybe at the bottom of the market, and you're being evaluated higher. Unless you're in a district that did something different. Right.
I have a lot of the appeals were, they might have a current appraisal for $600,000, and that might be today's value, $600,000. But as of the assessment date, which was January 1st, 2009, it was probably worth $700,000, and that's the value that we have to use for this tax billing cycle.
And wasn't there something else that happened about slivers of land and things like that were no longer in the base of calculations?
Well, the state oversees the process. Actually, the law says that the Commissioner of Revenue will hand out the guidelines for assessors to use locally in establishing full and fair cash valuation. And historically, because I've been with the department since 1982, historically there were statistical standards that you had to meet. Property, the assessment has to have a relation to the sale price, and you want to shoot for a goal of between 90 and 110%. If we met the statistical standards, we were certified. This has been an extremely difficult year because that wasn't enough for the state. They actually wanted to dig deeper into our methodologies, and they made a lot of changes that I didn't necessarily agree with. So,
such as little small pieces of land that
they were very, very focused on unbuildable pieces of land. So they aren't
buildable, but they're saleable.
They're saleable.
Yeah.
And we had come up with a method of assessing them at 10% of market value, and we had sales over time that proved that actually worked. That's not typical statewide.
No.
I think the state wants to be able to use a model for all 351 cities and towns.
Yeah, one size fits all.
One size fits all, which will not work.
Yeah, here.
So,
equitably here.
Right. And unfortunately, that's a very small piece of our database, but that was the core issue for the state this year. We were actually ready for our certification in February, and between February 18th and May 16th, that was the issue going back and forth. So what happened was, a good revaluation program would provide for a good amount of time for public disclosure to allow taxpayers to view the values before they actually get billed. Because of what happened, we had a shortened disclosure period. Luckily for the taxpayers, they do have an appeal. They had 30 days after the bill went out so that they could appeal to us, if they have any concerns. And I keep telling the taxpayers, you're lucky because I didn't have that appeal process with the state. It was pretty much do it their way or we don't get a bill out.
Supposing I suddenly discovered that I didn't like my assessment, can I still do something about it now?
The appeal period ended on Monday, but I always encourage people that, you know, even though you missed the deadline this year, write us a letter.
Yeah.
Put your concerns in writing, and we'll be glad to entertain it for fiscal year 11 bills, which are going out in October.
So, I see. Oh, okay. So that gives another opportunity to get another bite out of the apple.
Right. It wouldn't be for this year, but we're always happy to take in new information.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are you happy with your assessment?
Well, I mean, now that you've got me on television, I refuse to. That might incriminate me. But I noticed there weren't any in my area. There weren't any houses that got sold at that critical time that I know of.
Right, but
Yeah.
there also weren't any sales to show us that we needed to reduce that area either.
Yeah.
So
it sort of stayed about the same.
right.
Yeah. As opposed to some of the other areas that came screaming and yelling and saying, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, Debbie, go talk to Debbie.
Thank you. Yes, they did too. We had about 620 appeals
Really?
that came in.
And what was the batting average?
For success rate,
Yeah.
we won't know that. We actually I have 3 months to make a decision on these appeals, although we're trying to process them quickly because we're right at, year end.
And you have a board of appeals.
I have an abatement advisory committee,
Okay,
and
abatement,
they're
yeah.
actually meeting this afternoon. This will be the first of many, many meetings that they'll attend.
Yeah. And what, there are 3 people on
Three
that?
people.
Are they appointed or elected?
They're appointed.
They're appointed by what, the selectmen or?
The selectmen, actually. Well, I make the appointment, and then it's endorsed
we
by
have
the
to
finance
approve.
director,
Oh, okay.
and then,
So you're able to cherry pick.
well, I'm lucky I have members that have been with us for quite some time. And that's important because there's really a lot to understand in the process.
And they get paid, don't they?
They actually do get paid, and it's, again, it's a statute. In order to have this committee, they had to be appointed as assistant assessors.
I see.
And by law, assistant assessors must be compensated.
Uh-huh.
So they actually receive a very, very small stipend.
But they probably
year.
could get health insurance.
No, they can't.
Oh, they can't?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So it isn't that big of,
No.
yeah.
They're compensated $600 per person.
By the town or by the state?
By the town.
By the town.
It's state law that requires that they be paid.
Oh,
So we
okay.
pay them the absolute minimum wage we could pay them. Not that they're not worth a lot more, in case they're watching.
Well, but there are not many jobs in town that you get elected or appointed to that are paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody that wants to earn $600, no, we better not go there. But anyway, what other things are happening in the assessment field that are sort of new and different, or are there new and different things?
Well, this isn't really new and different, but a lot of people don't realize that assessments are actually made annually. Every 3 years, the state gets involved to oversee the methodologies being used, but we actually look at the values every year to make sure that we're keeping current with the market.
So you change your tax bill every year, and then the state comes in every third year and says, oh, well, maybe like they did with these small plots, they changed the methodology.
Right.
Now, how about the areas in the town? You know, you've got certain areas. Did you set that, or did the state set? How are those determined?
Actually, the short answer would be the market determines those areas. Based on sales, we try to define different valuation neighborhoods. Like Dionis would be a neighborhood, Monomoy would be a neighborhood. Many of the neighborhoods would have the same variables, but they would be distinct neighborhoods.
But the state allows you to determine this?
Yes.
And
yes.
do you have to, does that vary from year to year, or is it more or less permanent?
Well, we have a lot of neighborhoods that are in transition. That might have been a lower neighborhood historically, but now we've seen a lot of a pattern of a lot of senior citizens that have passed on, and maybe their houses are being remodeled. So it's kind of changing the look of the street, and that's attracting more buyers to that particular area. So I've had some neighborhoods that have expanded based on that.
Yeah, there used to be a neighborhood near where you live.
In Five Corners, that's a good example.
Yeah, which was more the working people, and now it's become, people are buying, summer visitors or year-round residents are buying in there. So that would change.
It would change
the boundaries.
Right. That would increase the value.
Yeah. And then overall, as the amount of money that the town gets is fixed, except it increases 2.5% per year.
Right, and thank you for mentioning that, because that's a big misconception by taxpayers, and actually a lot of town officials, new town officials, don't always understand it. But Proposition 2.5 limits the total amount of money that the town can collect through taxation. This year, our tax levy was right about $61 million. Next year, that can only increase by 2.5%.
Yeah.
Plus the taxable revenue attributable to new construction or new lots.
Which hasn't been that great.
No, it really dropped off this year. It was about $630,000, where for the past 8 years we've averaged about $1 million in new growth. So, permits have dropped. Everybody knows the building industry has really suffered.
But when you determine the mill rate or the rate of taxation, you take your total assessment for the town and divide it into the amount of money the town is entitled to get,
right.
Then you come up with a tax rate, except
right.
you've got different kinds of taxes. But
right.
overall, that's how you do it.
That's it.
So when people claim, they complain that taxes are too high, then you say, well, your assessment's too high. And but it's not the tax rate that's causing this, it's the assessment.
Right, we have high values.
Yeah.
And we still have a low rate, even though the residential rate went up 25 cents this year. We still have one of the lowest rates in the state. And on the flip side, we're about number 4, the 4th highest in value statewide.
Who's ahead of us?
Boston.
I would figure they got
Brookline
more.
and Cambridge.
And so it's Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, Nantucket in total value.
It's like that old movie, The Mouse That Roared.
I see. So that's interesting. There aren't any other hot spots of high value?
Well, a lot of people want to compare us to the Vineyard, but you have to realize that's 6 small towns.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They
so
have
if you
6
took the
assessors over there and 6 boards of selectmen, and we're just 1.
Yeah. So if you took the Dukes County, you'd probably have a higher value than Nantucket.
Probably, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good. Well, have you got anything more advice that you could give the people out there, or is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just be patient. We're reviewing all the appeals now, and we'll be looking at the market again next year. Well, in the fall.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen, if you didn't get an abatement this year, you'll probably see a reduction on the next tax bill. But,
really?
well, if some people, not all people.
I see. And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you: the residential deduction or
the residential exemption.
Exemption. That's 20%.
That's 20% of the average total residential value, which is this year. You could take the total residential value for the island and multiply it by 20%. And I think the exemption this year is $360,135. So everybody gets that same reduction on their tax bill. It's not 20% of your value.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
So
it's
you
a set
take
amount.
Oh, okay. So it's a set dollar amount.
Right.
And it's a possibility that could increase if the state allows it?
There are a few towns, I think Cambridge, I believe Somerville, and Boston have actually, through home rule petition, have increased that exemption amount to 30%.
Yeah. Is there any tendency on our part to go ahead and try to get 30%, or hasn't that really?
It's been talked about.
Yeah.
I haven't been asked to run any calculations yet, but it's early.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you. And since you were kind enough to invite me short notice, I wanted to see if you could help me out.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
I meet a lot of fascinating people, in my work, and I met this.
This is not Ms. Nantucket.
I met
again.
this mysterious woman 3 years ago, and I haven't been able to find her since. And I thought if I put her on your show, perhaps you'd be able to help me find her.
Who?
Isn't she lovely?
That's not Whitey.
Fascinating woman.
No way. Whitey, you are gorgeous.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
But I was terrible in high heels.
It didn't work.
No, I had to take them off and use slippers.
Okay.
Well, Whitey, thank you for inviting me on. And
Yeah,
if you-
but I was Ms. Size Green Coffee
You were
Pot.
Miss Size Green Coffee Pot.
Yeah. Well, that was a wonderful thing. That was my first and I hope my last appearance.
I think she'd make a good hostess
I don't
for
know.
your show.
You need an
okay.
alter ego, Whitey. Why
Oh,
not?
okay.
Bring her on.
It'll boost your ratings.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much. Right.
Thanks, Whitey.
It seems like 100 years since I reached out to dry the